before I get into the meat and bones of the video, I totally forgot something about the entire Brian Flores situation. He threw Lovie Smith under the bus when he got hired as the next head coach of the Houston Texans. It's not a good statement from his legal team. And once again, I really don't know whether it's him doing it, his legal team doing it, or both of them colluding to do it. But this seems like a really petty fucking statement. And once again, it screams to me that he did not, expect Josh McCown to get hired, which just feeds more into my point that Josh McCown was never in contention despite getting so far, and that was mainly hype up by the media. And 2, that Brian Flores was indeed partially Nick Caserio's main hire because he definitely wanted a defensive guy. Either he wanted to get Gannon or he wanted to get Flores. But I'm going to read the statement. Mr. Flores is happy to hear that the Texans have hired a black head coach, Lovie Smith, as Mr. Flores' goal in bringing his case is to provide real opportunities for black and minority candidates to be considered for coaching and executive positions within the NFL. The statement said, this is the same franchise that had a black GM for a decade plus. However, we would be remiss not to mention that Mr. Flores is one of the 3 finalists for the Texans head coaching position. And after a great interview of mutual interest, it is obvious that the only reason Flores was not selected was his decision to stand up against racial equality across the NFL. No, that is not the reason. The reason is you sued the league while you were trying to get a job. You can't sue someone while trying to get a job and expect to get that job. Look at me, I'm sounding like fucking Ice Cube's dad in Friday. Like, come on, man. Are you serious? You're really going to put that out? You just threw Lovie Smith under the bus. It's like he wasn't fucking qualified. He's not David Culley. It's very fucking clear he's not David Culley. The dude knows what the fuck he's doing when it comes to football, god damn it. And to throw him under the bus in this passive-aggressive bullshit statement, that's not just petty. How the fuck do you expect people to look at that on the outside looking in and go, oh, he's completely reasonable in saying that? Unless you're Mike Florio, then of course you say that. Like, come on, dude. Really? I don't understand it. And Clay Travis, I just watched a video of him saying it best. Like, dude, you need some new fucking lawyers. Oh yeah, he needs some new fucking lawyers, alright? This is bullshit. This is just going to bring more heat down on him. This destroys the relationship he had with Nick Caserio, for sure. There ain't no way in hell, even if Lovie Smith works out, that he would get another coaching opportunity with the Texans if he ever decided to come back. And hell, I was hoping maybe if Lovie got hired, maybe Flores could be hired as the DC. So that way he could lay low and get the heat off of him. But no. No, he decided, no, I'm going to be a little fucking bitch about it. And this was before I think they started putting the coaching staffs together. So you burned not just one bridge, you burned several bridges just within the Texans organization. And not only that, once again, you were in consideration for 5 fucking positions. And you didn't get a single one of them. And not only that, the Texans and Saints were the last 2 teams to hire. The Texans hired Lovie Smith, and guess who the Saints hired? They hired their defensive coordinator, who happens to be white. Yet you aren't suing them. Even though you told the Saints and the Texans that you would really like to be the head coach of both of those teams. I don't know, man. Seems to me like your legal team is it's run by a fucking retard. Like, good God, you suck. Whoever's making this decision. And Flores, if you are the one that's involved in making that decision, you need your head checked. If you would think that we're supposed to be feeling sorry for you now. Like, wow. Anyone else think Brian Flores is making a stupid mistake by trying to sue the Texans now because they didn't hire him? Like, dead serious. You sue the NFL. In that same suit, your lawyers, or you, or both of you, decided to put the Texans in as an example of this, despite the fact that you weren't suing them, saying that the entire situation with David Culley getting hired and then getting fired after a year was evidence of racism, or at least a bit of a dick move. And you can say, hey, it was a bit of a dick move, but you can't use that as an example of racism when most people in Houston and especially the Houston media, because don't beat around the bush here. Most of the people in Houston media were saying that David Culley was going to get fired before the last week of the season. Ends up getting fired after the last week of the season. Then they all threw a collective bitch fit about it. And hey, I would have liked to see him stay another year if he could have shown he was improving, but he wasn't. And not only that, it was clear that he was a stopgap coach because we literally couldn't get anyone else the year before, but that offseason. He's a good dude. There was a reason we got him. It was to really get the locker room back together after the disastrous reign of Bill O'Brien. But he was not a good play caller. He was not a good game manager. He failed many times as a coach. That's why he was fired. And then with this whole coaching search going on, yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad for the Texans to have this coaching search right after the David Culley firing. But this is my thing. You're going to sue the Texans, despite the fact that, once again, you sued the NFL while you were interviewing for the Texans and Saints jobs. And you mentioned the Texans by name as evidence of some of the stuff you were trying to support in your initial suit. Why? Do you think that's going to get you a job anywhere? Not only that, immediately after the Texans hired Lovie Smith, who is a black head coach, by the way, who has a mostly black coaching staff, and is doing what you said you were wanting to do, was to get more and more opportunities for black and other minority people in the NFL to get high-ranking jobs on the coaching staff. You decide to sue the Texans and not the Saints for not signing you. That tells me something. That's very telling to me, to be honest. Okay, so you're going to sue the Texans now for retaliatory not hiring you because you decided to sue the league. Like, look, you're not going to get hired anywhere if you're in the middle of suing them. There's no way in hell. You cannot convince me that would ever happen unless the guy who hires you likes you. And the Texans liked Brian Flores. There was a chance he could still be hired, but as the Texans' next head coach. But he wasn't, and it was mainly because of this lawsuit. Now, a lot of people were saying, well, it's because Josh McCown was going to be the guy that got hired. I still don't believe that. I still don't believe Nick Caserio had him as the definite guy to get hired. It sure seems that way. And even people like Adam Schefter have been going around saying, at least dropping hints that might have actually been the case. But I still don't believe Nick Caserio personally was going after him as the head hire. And that, once again, not only were people hyping up the Josh McCown train to a T, they were playing into Jack Easterby's hand, since it's more than clear that he had a hand in getting Josh McCown to the point where he nearly got the job. People are kind of ignoring that when it comes to this. And then not only that, we hired Lovie Smith. All right, that's a pretty big indication that we were trying to elevate our head coaching staff. The last two coaches we've hired are black. We also got Pep Hamilton and Cato. And if Lovie decides to retire after next year, and Pep does really well with the offense, he could be our next head coach. Or Lovie's son could be our next head coach if he keeps doing great work as a linebackers coach. Or at least be elevated to DC. Okay, you're saying you're doing this with an organization that had a black GM for a decade and plus. Most if not a bunch of its most famous players are black. Andre Johnson, Chester Pitts, Whitney Merciless, Jonathan Joseph, Mario Williams, just to name a few. And you decided to say that the Texans are racist. A lot of people are trying to say that the Texans are racist, but people have been trying to say that the Texans have been racist since the middle of last year. And into the offseason of 2020. That people kept saying that the Texans were racist. Texans racist, Texans racist, Texans racist. Shut up. Shut up. Okay. Now, if it turns out that was actually the case, we were going to hire Josh McCown, but we pivoted because of the Brian Flores lawsuit, and we hired Lovie Smith in a panic move, yeah, that's not good. But that still doesn't prove racism. That doesn't prove racism at all. You'd have to be a lot more intuitive than that to prove that it was indeed racism. Not only that, here's a big thing that people are kind of missing out on with the Lovie Smith hire. One, he interviewed for this job before. Guess when he interviewed? Right after we fired Gary Kubiak. Right after the end of the disastrous 2013 season that had us bottoming out at 2-14 after a 12-4 season. People tend to forget this. Lovie Smith has a pretty good relationship with the McNairs. Not only that, this was possibly a chance to correct a past mistake, considering guess who he hired? Bill O'Brien, when we interviewed Lovie Smith. This was probably either Cal or Janice McNair saying, look, this is a chance to correct a past mistake. We want to hire Lovie Smith. We want to bring in this guy. Not only that, he's an East Texas native, so he knows this area. Who better to coach a team in the East Texas area than an East Texan? Okay, there's a lot of factors that go into this. Not only this, Lovie's more than qualified enough. Been to a Super Bowl. Helmed some great defenses in his time. Was one of the main reasons our defense looked as good as it did this year, despite the fact that the stats don't show that. He's more than enough earning this chance in my mind. And he's got the credentials. Even if they've been a long time ago since he got them, he's still got the credentials. Coach of the year. Made it to a Super Bowl. Actually had a decent shot at beating Peyton Manning out if it wasn't for their offense being bad. So, there's all this. Brian Flores, but still decides to do this. But like I said, this tells me something else about Brian Flores. This tells me something that a lot of people aren't really trying to take into consideration here. What if Flores actually was offered the job, then he dropped the lawsuit? That would spell a lot of bad things for Flores if that came out in the court of law. Now, if it turns out that Dick hadn't actually offered it to him, but it was his main plan to offer it to him, then it would have really thrown a wrench in his goddamn plan. You think it was going to be a big wrench when it was throwing it in for the Josh McCown hire, if that's what was going to be the case? No, that's an even bigger wrench in the goddamn engine. Is that, he was going to hire what everyone wanted to hire in Brian Flores. But then Flores decided to drop the lawsuit because the Giants decided, no, we're going to fuck it up for some reason. Then Flores drops the lawsuit, and Nick's like, what the fuck? And then he sees that the Texans are implicated in it, despite not being a main defendant. He's like, Brian, what the hell is wrong with you? And I know he said that stuff in the press conference that, hey, I respect Brian Flores. He's a pretty good dude. We've worked together a long time, da-da-da-da-da. And that he understood what he was doing it for. But it just doesn't make any sense to me. If you're in consideration for a fucking NFL job, for any job, did you just go out there and randomly sue them? No, he didn't technically randomly sue them, but you're not going to get a job suing someone. That's not going to happen. That opens up a litany of issues down the road. And I think that's what Nick was looking at when trying to take in Flores into consideration. He's like, he could still hire him. He definitely could have still hired him. But you know what could happen down the line? Say the case kept going on, or the more likely case, he drops the lawsuit. He definitely could have dropped the lawsuit if we hired him, or if the Saints hired him, or if any other team hired him that had a head coaching opening. Think about it. With what he said about Stephen Ross, which has the most damning thing, and then what's going on with what he said about the Broncos, if neither of those are true, that's opening up to libel lawsuits. Big libel lawsuits that could get him banned from the league if he was indeed lying about the Broncos, which it's more than just, it's probably just hearsay, which is probably why he said it. I still don't understand why he said it, though. Like, if he was saying that they were drunk, it's like, well, maybe John Elway had a taste of alcohol, but he had to travel to see you. So he probably took some alcohol to try to get him alert, I guess, or something. I don't know, but I highly doubt he was drunk when he went to interview you. He just had some jet lag, was the more reasonable thing to think about when it comes to that. And not only that, if he's lying about Stephen Ross tanking, that's a thing that could get him ejected as a league owner. Well, not a league owner, as a team owner. There's a lot of ripples that go down for an organization like that. And the NFL would have to scramble to find a new owner for the Dolphins. That's a lot of work to go through. If it comes out that he's lying about that, holy shit, not only blacklisted from the league, he would definitely have to lose his job as retaliation. Or say there's nothing there to prove that he was lying about what happened in those two events. But the lawsuit takes such a big hit on him personally that he can't focus on his duties as a head coach. So it's not just a business decision, it's a personal decision too for Nick, considering he and Brian knew each other. But he had to take in all the scenarios. And Nick's a smart enough guy to know to plan ahead, in my mind. And he's going, look, man, do I want to hire him and get people off our back for a little while, but then have something come back and bite us in the ass later with him? Or do we just try to find someone else, despite the fact that I had him as my main guy? If that was indeed his main guy, I still think it was Gannon, but if there was a significant chance we could have got Flores, I wouldn't doubt that would have been the case. But then this happens. We hire Lovie Smith. Many people view it as a panic hire because we were going to hire Josh McCown, who's a white guy, and we just fired a black head coach, and then we got a guy suing the NFL because of racial discrimination. Like, it would be a real bad look to hire Josh McCown in that aspect, so we hired a black coach in retaliation. Well, not retaliation. We hired a black head coach to make sure that people didn't call us racist. Like, you didn't have to hire a black coach to do that, to keep people from calling you racist. All right. But this is my thing. A lot of people around the league would know, indeed, if they were hiring Lovie Smith based on the race issue. I don't believe that, though. Because, as it's been made clear, Pep Hamilton was wanted by Nick Caserio. He wanted Pep to stay and become the next offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. And he definitely wanted Lovie Smith to stay on the Texans coaching staff, whether it be as a defensive coordinator or as the assistant coach. Because he really liked Lovie and he really liked Pep. And he let them have their own clairvoyance on their own staffs. They chose guys that they were familiar with, that had reputations, good reputations. And that's pretty daggum good. That proves to me that Nick wasn't the outright tyrant that people were trying to paint him as when it came to the head coaching search, that, he wanted to have his fingers into every little thing. Like, he wanted absolute control over how the team plays. Like, he was trying to be the next Greg Popovich. But still, it was still a weird situation. But even then, we still had franchise greats come in to celebrate this hire. Andre Johnson, who spent the first part of last year bashing the Texans for letting Jack Easter be around in the building, came to this opening fucking press conference congratulating Lovie Smith. He was happy to be there for him. Jonathan Joseph was there. God damn it. Two franchise greats right there supporting our hire of Lovie Smith. Even if they weren't there, they were probably following along about what was going on. And they were happy. They were happy regardless of what had happened the few weeks before, after the firing of David Culley. They were happy with the result. A lot of players were happy with the result. For all the talk about players getting more power now, this seems like a bit of a thing to give players more input. If they're going to hire a guy to be the head coach from the coaching staff, someone that the people in the building really, really like. Means Nick isn't being the outright tyrant people kept on saying he was. But Brian Flores decided to sue. He decided to put the Texans into this suit now for not hiring him. It's like, dude, shut up. you're making your case look even worse. I see people of every skin color, nationality, sexuality, whatever, bashing you right after you made this decision on Twitter. But dude, all you had to do was not do that. Not only that, he didn't add the Saints to this lawsuit, despite the fact they promoted a literal white guy to succeed the other white guy. Like, come on. You were in consideration for that job too, don't you remember? They promoted their defensive coordinator who had a worse head coaching record than you. You're not going to say anything about that? And I'm not saying the Saints should be sued. I'm not saying the Texans should be sued. The only ones that should be sued right now, if there is a legitimate case against them, is the Dolphins and Giants, because I don't know what the fuck he's thinking about the Broncos. But this is making his case look worse. This is definitely going to get him in some hot water when the case starts, if it goes to court. And if it ends in a settlement and not an outright ruling, woo, man, Flores is going to look bad. Oh, man, Flores is going to look bad. Look, I'll just say this again. This whole situation is just 7 shades of weird. I really don't know what in the hell Flores and his legal team are thinking. I think he should fire his fucking lawyers. If they're the ones conning him into saying this shit, he needs to do like Deshaun with his agent. Fire your fucking agent. Fire his fucking representation in the court of law. This is ridiculous. Like, that is going to ruin you, just like Colin Kaepernick ruined his image in front of other teams. No one wants to deal with the headache. That's why everyone didn't want to bring in Colin Kaepernick after the anthem controversy. Because he made himself such a hated symbol that no team wanted the headache. They didn't want the backlash, whether it was warranted or not. And by the way, it was warranted, especially in Miami, because, you know, Castro. Don't be praising Castro, asshole. Not only that, he was still going to get a job, though. He was still going to get a job. His girlfriend decided to call the Ravens owner a racist and a literal slave owner. She literally called him a slave owner, and he didn't dump her for that. And Ray Lewis fucking cried on national TV. I remember that interview. He cried on national television when he heard that fucking comparison. He's like, Colin, you're a dumbass. We were trying to get you. We were trying to help you out, and you decided to do that? You let your girlfriend fucking do that? You fucking dumbass piece of shit. Fuck you. Like, come on. Oh, seriously, if he keeps doing this shit, he will be the next Colin Kaepernick. Only he will be the Colin Kaepernick with an actual case. Because I still don't believe Colin Kaepernick actually believed in any of the shit he was saying at first. He deluded himself into believing it. Not saying he didn't have points to make. He definitely did, but I still believe he only started the anthem controversy because he was pissy that he was getting benched despite the fact he was injured in the preseason. And people tend to forget that it literally just came out of nowhere. He didn't say anything before. He didn't say anything in the lead up to this. He just kneeled for the national anthem out of nowhere, and it made big headlines, and he wanted to capitalize off of it. And he only did it because he was fucking pissy about Blaine Gabbert. So yeah. Hopefully I'm wrong. Hopefully I'm wrong about this. That Brian Flores maybe has a case. No, I'm not hoping that. I don't want the Texans to be a racist organization. Why would I say that? Why would I say that? Why would I say that I want Flores to be wrong about the Texans? Well, I mean, I don't want Flores to be wrong about the Texans. I don't want him to be wrong about the Texans. I don't want him to be right. And I don't think he is right. Which is why I'm calling this out. I don't understand what the fuck he's doing. No one does at this point. You can't tell me you see that and go, unless you're Mike Florio, stupid idiot, saying that it was not okay for him to, like, dude, what were you going to do? If Nick Caserio knew that you were going to sue the Texans if they didn't hire you, and he hired you anyway, that would be really, really bad on him. Not only that, Nick probably dodged several bullets not hiring you in the first place, which is probably why he didn't hire you. But man, if I'm watching this right now through the perspective of different teams, I'm putting them in my head right now. If I'm seeing that, why would I ever want to hire you again? Why would I ever want to consider you for a hire? If you were going to do that in retaliation for someone not hiring you, even though you put the organization in a messy spot. That makes literally no sense. Hopefully the situation gets resolved sooner rather than later, but man, this is so dumb. Absolutely dumb. What a dumb move by Brian Flores and or his legal team. Come on, man. Come on.